Hey there, this is Natalie, and without further ado, it's time for day 2 of Higurashi When They Cry. Now, as we saw in day 1, it's been arranged that Keiichi, the protagonist, is going to be spending the day looking around the village with Rina and Mion. So Rina and Mion are already waiting for him because he's late, where he overslept on his day off from school. He was late because he was watching his favourite show, which I guess was probably some kind of 80s anime. Oh no, he was watching something called A Day in the Life of... I guess that's like some biography show that was on in the 80s. I mean, this might just be something they changed it to in the English translation. Now, Rina's got a heavy-looking handbag, and they're going to spend a bit of time discussing what could possibly be in it. She made a picnic, and Mion and Keiichi feel like it looks like way too heavy to just be the food for the three of them. So we're getting a bit more of how Rina likes to cook for everybody. She likes to make food for her friends. And she's been particularly excited to make the picnic for this day that they're going to spend together. I guess because she's getting to make lunch for a man. Something that we know all anime girls really like to do. They all turn into Gordon Ramsay as soon as they have a crush. Does this girl have a crush? We'll find out. So Rina says it weighs about 2 kilos, but she's struggling to pick it up, and that makes him guess that it actually weighs 5 kilos. I guess I've been hitting the gym too much because that really still doesn't sound like something that would be a struggle to pick up. She thought he could eat a lot because he's a boy, so she made a lot. Or is it because she's into him? I think she's into him. All of it needs to be eaten. I won't forgive you if you make Rina sad. A carefree walk bathed in the gentle morning sunlight. I couldn't have even imagined something so wholesome existed during my time in the city. Yeah, I'm sure this village is going to be real wholesome. No slovenly desk jockeys trudging to work on the weekends out here. Yeah, but there's probably some kind of curse or monsters or psychopaths. Think I would take working on a Saturday over that. As sparsely populated as the village was, you could still run into people just by walking around, and we're going to see them run into some people now. Now, we don't get sprites for these people that they meet up with while they're walking around. I don't know if that's because they're just not important enough to be shown on screen, or whether that's because they're going to become important later and they don't want to reveal what they look like. We passed 3 people, and when all 3 of them knew me, I started to feel a bit paranoid. But everyone knows everyone since there are so few people here in Hinamizawa. So when they see someone they don't know, they just assume it's that Maebara fella who just moved here. Hinamizawa is not to be trifled with. That's not the end of this nightmare of people he doesn't know knowing them. Okay, so now we find out who the 3 people they passed by were. The first person we met was old man Takezu from the Makino bike shop. His hobbies are bonsai and playing the flute. I feel like, should I be taking notes here? Next we met the grocer's second son, Daisuke-kun. His hobby is sharpshooting and he hopes to be an ace sniper in the future. Okay, that escalated quickly. And the person we just met was Mio-san, the nurse from the clinic. Her hobbies are birdwatching and photography. Birdwatching and photography. Thinking back to the anime, I believe we saw another character whose hobby was taking pictures of birds. And having played through this day already, I think we'll be seeing him make an appearance today. So I wonder if maybe there's a bit of a ship there with Mio-san and Mr. Photography Man. And now Mion and Reina talk about how they're not like city people who hardly know their neighbours because they know the profiles and names of everybody in the village. So basically they're saying they're those kind of nosy people you get out in the boonies, I suppose. He tests it out by asking them who he is. From a visual novel perspective, I guess this is a chance to see how other people see the protagonist. They say, "You're Keiichi Maebara, you say some mean things, but you're actually a kind, shy person. It's been 3 weeks since you transferred here. Your hobby is taking afternoon naps. Lately, you switched over to wearing boxers, didn't you?" Oh, Mion. She's such a scamp. And of course Reina gets flustered. I feel like we're really settling into knowing how these characters are, what kind of interactions to expect from them. And once again he says, Hinamizawa is not a place to be trifled with. I expect that's true. Now we get some information. The population in Hinamizawa is shrinking, so the villagers welcome anyone who's new here. So in day one we learned that, he's changed a lot since he's moved from the city. Even though it's only been a few weeks, he's taking on more of the kind of attitudes of someone who lives out in a more rural place. And this is another kind of comparison like that. He's saying he'd never greeted someone who just moved into the city before in the way that his friends and the people from the village are doing for him now. But the reason for it, the population being small and shrinking, means that they want new people to come to the village. I don't know, isn't that kind of at odds with how we tend to think about small villages? Maybe that they tend to be quite insular places that don't welcome outsiders so much. As for the shrinking population, that's something that we saw with the school, with the fact that it had previously been a bigger school and now was just a small school with only 30 students. So why is the population shrinking? Do people just move out from this village once they get a bit older? Or is there some more sinister reason, like everyone gets murdered by ghosts? Probably murdered by ghosts. The next person they meet is a lady called Fujishima-san. Oh my, Mibara-kun, how wonderful for you having a lovely girl on each arm. How are you? So she's an old woman, and that's really all we get to know about her. So now they're going off to have their lunch. Rina's brilliant smile signalled the approach of an event that both Mion and I were trying to forget. We both looked at each other. This is because they believe she's made way too much food for the three of them and they're going to have to eat it so that she doesn't get upset. As I said in my day one video, there is a lot of talking about food in this thing. So to have lunch, they're heading to a new setting, which is the shrine. This here is the Furude Shrine. It's probably the place with the best view around. This place, be sure to remember it. On our next break, a festival will be held here. I'm sure that's probably a signal to me that I'm supposed to remember it, in all its filtered photograph glory. And here, Mion explains that the Watanagashi isn't a summer festival. Long ago it used to be a celebration of the end of winter. So where Keiichi's expecting that usually festivals would be in the middle of summer, even though it's only June, they're going to be having their village's big festival very soon. But not soon enough, because first we have to hear all about the lunchboxes. And oh look, Rika-chan and Satoko have appeared. It was all a clever ruse by Rina all along that she'd made that much food because there were going to be 5 people. I don't really get why he's so surprised about this. It's like, what else were these 2 girls going to be doing on a Saturday in this village? Why are they here? But we do see that Mion invited them expecting that Satoko would be making too much food, actually, so maybe it wasn't Rina's plan, but something that Mion had done to make sure that there were enough people to finish everything. And here we see that Satoko refers to the shrine as her property. The temple is public grounds, it's not yours. This is everyone's property. But does that mean that Satoko's family has something to do with the shrine? Or is this just another example of her sort of pretending that she's royalty and talking to other people, saying that they're plebeians and things like that? And now Keiichi tries to mess with Satoko by saying there's nowhere for her to sit and nothing for you to eat. Reina says that there is some for her. This is just kind of the same dynamic that we saw on day one, where he's kind of acts like Satoko is an enemy, where she's always playing pranks on him and vice versa, and the other 2 girls are just kind to everyone. So Mion says, man, really Kei-chan, you're really good at leading people on. You might have a talent for this. Rika's sad now. She says if we don't hurry, it'll all be eaten up, because Keiichi and Satoko are fighting over the food. They have a little fight over a meatball, which Keiichi wins. But then Satoko and Keiichi begin choking at the same time, falling backwards and spasming. That doesn't sound good. Rika-chan patted me on the head to clear it, even though it was actually stuck in my throat. Seeing that made Rina blush and breathe heavily in excitement. It was almost like flowers were floating all around her. Mion advised Rina to refrain from saying anything that could get her locked up. This is how our meals usually go. So it's really just, again, the usual cute hijinks and buffoonery. Although, you know, he did actually choke, and when Rika patted him on the head to comfort him, Rina got all excited about that. Now, I'm assuming that's because she thinks it's really cute when Rika does things like that. But maybe there's something else about seeing someone choke that turns her on. I don't know. We'll see. Now they talk about how in the past people just used to eat by themselves in silence, and in the modern era it became normal for people to eat together and all that stuff. So there aren't many words in Japanese to complement the flavour of something. But Rina's just happy to hear that it tastes good, that her effort was worth it. Because she's so nice. I still think, of all of them, she seems like the one that's likely to turn out to be a weirdo. Though, like I said, I still don't know if anyone is going to turn out to be a weirdo. I don't know if it's that kind of horror story, or, you know, if there's some supernatural thing going on. At the moment, we don't really know anything about that, because it hasn't really been introduced at all that there's anything sinister in this place, or really anything for the protagonist to be worried about. He's still just going around having normal kind of interactions with other little girls, having some fun, making friends. And once again we see Reina losing it because Rika's done something cute, so she's all like, I'm gonna take you home. So we're seeing that quirk of Reina's to get really flustered when somebody does something cute. She seems to find Rika-chan especially cute, but of course Rika-chan is an adorable little angel. Now we see that Reina has made rabbits out of apples, and she's giving those to her friends. Rabbits, the most terrifying of all animals. Now Satoko's trying to think of a way to praise Reina's lunch in the way that Rika did, so that she can get one of the rabbits made of apples. And there's a bit of banter about all of that. And even though Satoko's praise of the lunch was kind of weak, because she did it in a way that was cute, Reina-chan blushed and her head spun, waving around in circles, so she's having her usual reaction to thinking something's cute, and so I'm guessing Satoko will get an apple rabbit. And now she wants to take Satoko home as well as Rika. So Satoko gets her apple rabbits. Now Keiichi wants the apple rabbits too. He wants to praise Reina for her lunch so that he'll get some. But because she's unlikely to think he's cute in the same way as Satoko, he's saying that Satoko used dirty tricks, and so he's going to try something different. So now Mion's going to have a try as well. She reckons she has a trick to win herself some apple rabbits. The plan of attack Mion suggested was wicked. He tries to compliment her food by saying it was all freshly made, and Reina replies that no, almost all of it was frozen stuff. So he asks, which ones did you make fresh? She doesn't want to say. From the synergy of boy plus handmade lunchbox, her expression had melted into euphoria. So he identifies which one he thinks was the homemade one. He gets it right, and she's embarrassed but of course delighted. He said that he can tell. Using the line that Mion fed him beforehand, he waits like he's shy and then says, "It had your smell." So he's going for the old flirting with Reina to get her all embarrassed thing again, which seems to be something that happens quite a lot, part of the dynamic between this group of friends. He blushed because he was embarrassed to say such a cheesy thing, but but it works. He says he'd like to try one of Reina's handmade apple rabbits. And of course, he beats Satoko, and Reina offers him as many apple rabbits as he wants, but she also pins him down and shoves dozens of the apples into his mouth, knocking him over. Now we're seeing the boisterous side of Reina again. She's strong and she's able to do that kind of thing. My head was forcibly laid upon her lap, and more apples were shoved into my mouth. While she was squealing, one apple after another was forced into my mouth, more and more. Mion thanks him for his sacrifice, so that she and Keiichi could win and beat Satoko at getting the most apple rabbits. Satoko pretends she doesn't care, but she grinds her teeth, mortified. He claimed victory as his consciousness slowly drifted away. At that time, Reina stopped her squealing as she suddenly realised something. What's happening here? Is he like blacking out or something? Rika-chan, you're not eating it? Looking over, Rika-chan had pulled the toothpick out of the apple rabbit, placed it into her cupped hands, and seemed to be at a loss for what to do. Poor Mr. Rabbit, I feel sorry for him. I want to save him. Oh, she feels sorry for the apple rabbit because it's shaped like a rabbit, I guess. That was the sound of blood spurting from Reina's nose, because Rika said something cute again. And again, Reina says she wants to take her home. She shook sporadically, her head wobbling back and forth. And then she takes all of the apple rabbits back from Keiichi and gives them to Rika-chan for being the cutest. Rika-chan raised up Satoko's hand like a referee after having that plate of rabbits shoved to her. She whispered, "This is our victory." So Rika-chan was actually using her cuteness in order to take victory back from Mion and Keiichi. I don't know, that's kind of interesting in the way that Rika, she does these cute things and seems all kind of angelic and everything. But it does seem from this scene like she's self-aware about the effect that her cuteness has, at least on Reina. I mean, it would be pretty hard not to be self-aware about that. But she's also willing to kind of use it. We only see it in these kind of childish games that they're playing where it doesn't really matter, but maybe that's a hint at something about Rika's character. And finally, the scene of the picnic has ended. Though, guys, there is still the scene of the card game to come, you know. We're not out of the woods yet when it comes to scenes of shenanigans and nothing at all creepy happening. But now they're all ready to part ways for the end of this day. But there is still a very interesting scene still to come. Actually, probably one of the more interesting ones we've had so far. So right now, Satoko and Rika are leaving. Then Mion leaves as well, and it ends up with just Reina and Keiichi enjoying the evening air on their way home. Keiichi mentions that it feels like a waste to go home now, so Reina suggests they take a little detour. So they take a walk through some more scenery. I was told that there's a mod you can get that makes this look a lot better, but I haven't got around to checking that out yet. I'm usually a console gamer, so it really hadn't occurred to me that mods were a thing for a visual novel, but yeah, it's not surprising that somebody did make a mod to make it, bring it a bit more up to date. But for this video, let's just enjoy these filtered pictures of garbage, because they've reached somewhere where there's illegal dumping going on, which we find out is a former construction site that's now filled with general dumped stuff, which Reina really likes to explore to look for treasures. She's already entered her well-known cute mode before even getting into the garbage. So that meant there was something cute here. Whoa, a new pile. I can't wait. Being a kid in the 80s in rural Japan sounds terrible, doesn't it? Let's go and play in garbage and look for things to take home. And as a city boy, Keiichi's not very good at clambering over the garbage, whereas Reina's just fine at negotiating her way through this pile of stuff. So she tells him to wait there while she goes and explores. So I guess this shows us not only that Reina, as a country girl, is used to just sort of climbing around and exploring places. It also kind of hints at that athleticism we saw from her on day one, where she's able to kind of beat up the other girls despite her cutesy persona. She does seem to be the most athletic of the characters. The cry of the Higurashi gently cooled the air. It's almost like a title name drop there. Makes me think something important's gonna happen. Which I think it is, because as I said in the first video, I have already played through the first 3 days. Because when I first got the game, I couldn't get OBS to record it properly. Just had some issues with my settings. And so I did play through just those first, 2.5 days actually. I didn't finish day 3. And so I do know what's going to happen here. And it is also something that was in episode 1 of the new anime. So we are going to meet this fella. Standing there was a typical looking photographer. I mean, is he a typical looking photographer? He's got like dog tags and he's wearing camo gear. Does he not look more like a military guy or something? His body was tanned and fit. Something you associate with photographers? Something about him seemed unreliable, and he had a bit of an aloof air about him. But it didn't seem like he was a bad guy. Although he was startled when I turned around, he overplayed his reaction. Keiichi feels like he's the one who should be saying he's surprised. So it almost seems like the guy was intentionally appearing on the scene and trying to get Keiichi's attention, but making out that he was surprised when he actually saw him. So he asks Keiichi if he's from Hinamizawa, and he gathered that he wasn't from that question because, as we've already established in this day, people from Hinamizawa all know each other and can tell who Keiichi is as the newcomer, just from the gossip around the village about there being a new family living there. He introduces himself as Tomitake. He says he's a freelance photographer who comes to the village from time to time. Keiichi tells him it's quite rude to photograph someone without consent, but he says that he mainly photographs wild birds. They can't refuse, you see. So this is what I was talking about when we saw earlier that there was a character who was a nurse whose hobbies were bird watching and photography. So maybe this guy isn't really a freelance photographer who just comes to take pictures of wild birds. Maybe he's a guy from the city who's interested in that nurse character and comes to take pictures of the birds so that he can have something in common with her. Or maybe they do both really like those things and it's going to be some kind of romance that we're going to see. That image of a young man in the twilight was just picturesque. I apologise for trying to take your picture without asking. Yeah, who could resist taking a picture of a teenage boy in a pile of garbage? Nothing suspicious about that at all. Adults are pretty slick. All the annoyance I felt for being startled just flew away as he buttered me up. But this older guy, Tomitake-san, he didn't mind my cautious responses and continued rambling on by himself. But then Reina appears. So we don't get to see what Tomitake was rambling on about. I guess it wasn't very interesting. I mean, that doesn't normally stop them from writing out the whole conversation in this visual novel, so it must be irrelevant or something that is relevant and they don't want us to know yet. Oh yeah, she's waving at Keiichi from the garbage pile, and Tomitake's asking if he has someone with him and what would she be doing over there. Keiichi makes a joke now. He makes a dark kind of joke saying maybe she's checking on that dismembered corpse that was out here long ago. But Tomitake-san looks shaken up by that for a moment. Keiichi realizes that he'd responded to Tomitake as if he was talking to Reina and the others, you know, making a silly joke that was actually something a bit too edgy to really say to strangers, I guess. And now Tomitake gives us the first indication that anything weird has ever happened in this village. He says, it was quite a disturbing incident. They still haven't found one of the arms. And before Keiichi has a chance to ask for any more details about that, Reina comes back up from the garbage heap. And Tomitake, who is either just being a bit patronizing here or believes they're a couple, says he's going to leave you two lovebirds alone. And off he goes. Now Reina's asking if Keiichi's angry. He is a little bit unsettled by Tomitake-san, so she's not wrong to wonder why he's acting a little bit differently, but he says that it wasn't Reina's fault, so he decided to just brush it off. And now they're walking back, and Reina's telling him about the fact she found a Colonel Sanders statue, which in the anime she referred to by the Japanese name for the mascot of KFC, which is Kenta-kun, which I think is just way cuter, so I'm going to be calling him Kenta-kun. I wonder if the Kentucky Fried Chicken from The Devil is a Part-Timer has a Senta-kun. And she wants to take Kenta-kun home because she thinks he's cute. To which Keiichi replies that she could take him home if she wanted to because he's just been put in the garbage so nobody else wants him. But Reina says that she can't dig the Colonel Sanders out easily because it's become the base of a big pile. And also it's getting dark, so she won't be able to see to rescue him. So to cheer her up, Keiichi says that he'll help her out and they'll go back there to retrieve the Kenta-kun another day. And he says he's going to do that to repay her for the delicious picnic. Reina's delighted because she gets to take Colonel Sanders home and because Keiichi's offered to help her. So he's going to use her good mood as an opportunity to ask her about what Tomitake told him about the dismembered corpse. Hey Reina, long ago, did something happen here? Seems like they were building a dam here. I don't know the details though. So Keiichi asks her if she knew about an accident or something. I don't know. Her tone was disturbingly frank. It sounded more like a denial than an answer. Now, in the visual novel here, the music is actually cut out for this bit, so we can only hear the sound of the cicadas. I'm not playing the background music in these videos because I'm not really sure how well that plays on YouTube, and also because I'm editing down these videos a lot and it will just sound kind of weird. So you can't hear it, but the music cut out. We just got the sound of cicadas, and it wasn't on the loop that it usually is when it plays the cicada sound, so now it's completely silent. In the anime, when Reina delivers this line and when other characters deliver similar kind of strange denials about this incident, they were given these kind of almost robotic voices that sound very much unlike how the voice actresses talk the rest of the time. So I think the change in tone is supposed to be extremely significant, almost as if these girls have been strictly ordered not to say anything about this thing, or they've been brainwashed in some way. Maybe they've had their memories erased, I don't know. But it's clearly supposed to be probably the first really big important moment in Keiichi's interactions with these girls, where Reina says that she doesn't know anything about an accident or anything like that. So he says, I must have appeared rather dumbstruck. But then Reina quickly lightened her expression. Okay, so now the sound effects have come back on. Reina, her sprite is smiling again, and she says, actually, I didn't live here until a year ago. So the tone switches directly back to normal. She's got like a very plausible reason not to know anything about the incident Tomitake referred to, and Keiichi's sense of unease should be sort of abated by this, but it's all a bit strange. He says, you transferred here too? I was sure that... And then she just presses on. So, you see, I don't really know much from before that. Now, it seems odd here, both to me and probably to Keiichi in the story, that being a transfer student himself, it had never come up before in the 3 weeks or so that he's known Reina, that she also hasn't lived in the village for very long. We saw them earlier in this day interacting with random people from the village and talking about the way the village is and how everybody knows each other. He commented on the way that she moves around as though she's a proper country girl. So it's clear that he's made the assumption that she's from the village, and it does seem strange that it's never been brought up before that she isn't. Is she lying? Don't really know, don't want to talk about it. That was the kind of feeling she gave me. Thinking about it, of course it would be like that. This wasn't the type of thing girls would enjoy talking about. It was quite a disturbing incident. It seems they haven't been able to find one of the arms. If it's just like Tomitake-san said, then I had a feeling only the Higurashi would know. Now, we've completed day 2, but just like with day 1, it has unlocked 2 new tips. So let's take a look at those. These ones I did actually look at the first time I played through. And the first one, the Maebara Manor, this one is all about the house that Keiichi lives in. This one is presented as another conversation they had at school, where Mion is asking him if he's rich and how much he gets as a monthly allowance. He's wondering why she would assume he was rich. He says he gets about $10 a month as an allowance, which Satoko refers to as a rather plebeian amount. I don't know what $10 was worth in 1983. His lunch was made up of normal stuff. He isn't rich, Rika says. Judging the man on his lunch. Because they're all obsessed with lunches in this place. Reina seems to know why they're all asking him about how much money he has. And she explains that it's because his house is big. The architecture has people all around Hinamizawa calling it the Maebara Manor, and it sort of stands out. So everyone in the village is gossiping, wondering how rich his family is because their house is big. Satoko says, from my deduction, I wager they spent too much money on building the house and that's why they're now broke. Okay, so what this tells us is that this house was newly built by Keiichi's family. Otherwise, of course, all these girls would have known the big house was there all the time. They might still be gossiping about the people who'd bought it, but it seems it is a new large property that's just sprouted up in their village, and that's why they're wondering about the family that live there and why they need such a big house. Rika-chan pats him on the head, listening to what Satoko said and saying it's very unfortunate how broke his family is. He's gone from being treated like a millionaire to a beggar. But he confirms that they aren't millionaires or poor. We're the image of a normal average household. Mion says you can't call it normal with that huge house. The entranceway is all grand and the gate is large enough for a large truck to get through. And here we get a lovely picture of the house. The reason the house is so big is because Dad's studio is in it too. Okay, so as we learned in the first day, Keiichi's dad is an artist and he has his studios, a bunch of different workshops and lots of his works hung up in different places. So part of the house is a gallery, I guess, some of it's studios, and all of the pieces of art he makes are huge too. So his family only live in about a third of this house and the rest of it is used for his dad's painting business. He planned it out so people and cars could come in to see the gallery he opens up in the house someday. So as yet he hasn't actually opened up the gallery, he's just using it as a studio. The entranceway Mion is talking about, that she said was big enough for a truck, is the one for the studio and is normally sealed off. I guess that means his dad has things delivered for his paintings. Maybe materials and stuff. It did say he was a painter, not a sculptor, but you know, that it could be that he does other kinds of art installations as well, or maybe he just needs really, really big canvases and frames that he has delivered by trucks. The interior is much different from how it looks on the outside. Mion says she would like to explore Kei-chan's house, claiming not to be rich but having a home like that. What could be hidden there? Well, something's going to be hidden there, isn't it? What do we think this is? It's a psychological horror visual novel. Of course there's something in the house. Something cool. Maybe there's something cute hidden, said Reina. Satoko says they probably had no money to purchase furniture, so it's filled with Spartan rooms. And Rika says if there are carpeted rooms, I would love to try rolling around on the floor. Reina said she would love to roll around on the floor too. These girls want to roll around on some carpets. But Keiichi says sometime in the near future it wouldn't be too bad to invite them all to my house. So as far as he knows, there's nothing sketchy about his house. Dad is a sucker for the ladies, so he might even let them look around his studio. So that all seems normal, doesn't it? Like, if your dad was an artist of some kind, you would expect that if you brought your friends home, he would be proud to show them all around. It's all quite normal. The cry of the Higurashi crescendoed as the sky towered over everything. It was hot, but the air was clear. It smelled like the beginning of summer. So I guess that the house is going to be something significant. So we've learned all about the size of Keiichi's house and the layout, and a bit more about his dad's job. But what seems a bit more like it might have some relevance to the immediate mystery that was brought up in this day is this file here called The Dam Site Murder/Dismemberment. So let's take a look. So from somewhere he's found a newspaper from 1979. But is it damaged or something? For some reason we can't read the date exactly and in June it's from. But it's June now in the story, so I guess this is around the 4th anniversary of when this murder and dismemberment happened. The Shishibone City Okinomiya Police Station, June, we don't know, late at night. And it's not telling us the names of the suspects either. These are all blocked out, though we do have different numbers of crosses here. I don't know if that's telling us how long the names of these people are. And it says these suspects were arrested on suspicion of murder and improper disposal of a corpse. The main offender, whose name is represented by 4 crosses, has been added to wanted lists nationwide. According to our sources, the 6 suspects were at the Hinamizawa Dam construction site workroom on the blanked out date at 9 p.m, where they're suspected to have assaulted and murdered the site overseer, whose name is also blanked out, as a group, dismembering his body and hiding it. So the person who was murdered was the site overseer of this dam project. Another blacked out date, but I suspect that will be the day after the previous day by the fact it's now referring to 8 o'clock in the morning. A report was filed by the Shishibone City Hospital in which a male suspect alluded to having murdered the victim. When questioned at the police station, the individual confessed to the crime. Since a portion of the body was recovered at the location he gave, he was arrested that afternoon on suspicion of murder and mutilation of a corpse. So he told them where part of the body was, and they found it where he said it was, and took that as confirmation that he'd been involved in the murder. And the mutilation of a corpse. I mean, we knew it had been dismembered by the fact Tomitake said that they never found the arm, but is it like different parts of the victim were all over the place? The rest of the suspects were arrested at the same day, but the main culprit is still at large. Police are currently on his trail. The motive is purported to be a drunken verbal dispute during which he killed the victim in a fit of anger. However, as there are multiple inconsistencies with their testimonies, the investigation is ongoing. I mean, why would you have like 6 accomplices to kill and dispose of someone if you were just sort of killed them accidentally during a fight over a drunken verbal dispute? So that's all very suspicious, isn't it? Very interesting too, because now I don't think this is going to be the main mystery of this series. It doesn't seem like it's all just down to there was a murder 4 years ago and people are keeping quiet about it. I think there's going to be a lot more to this series than just that one incident. But the fact that we've now seen that Keiichi has had introduced to him, the fact that something bad did happen a few years ago, we're going to be getting more into the trying to uncover what's going on in this village and what the nature of this story is actually going to be, which I think is good, because 2 days was enough of scene setting and getting to know the characters, in my opinion. I have played part of the next day, and there is a lot more school-based, having some fun, playing some games type scenes, but I don't know, because I haven't finished that day yet, so when I play it through in the next video, we'll be starting to get into stuff I haven't seen at all. So I'm hoping that day 3 is going to bring some interesting stuff for us. Other than that, that's my playthrough of day 2. And thank you for listening. I hope to see you again for day 3 very soon. Which includes also my read-through of Arc 4 of the ReZero web novel, as well as theories and various other videos about ReZero, and some other stuff about new animes airing this season. Thank you for listening, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again very soon.